Hey everyone, today we're going to be testing out some expensive versus cheap art supplies to see which one's really worth it. Let's get into it. Okay, so starting off with the expensive art supplies, we're going to be starting with my Kurotoga 0.5mm mechanical pencil, some Copic multi-liners, fine point Sharpie for shadows. I don't really use many expensive black markers, so we're going to use these for both. And for colouring, I'm going to be using a mixture of the Winsor & Newton Pro markers and the Copic alcohol markers. This is because the Copic markers will fit this challenge more because they're a lot more expensive. However, I've got a larger variety of colours with the Pro markers. And also the prices will be, I don't know, somewhere around here with the total on my hand right here. Now with the cheap art supplies, I'm going to be using a really standard number 2 pencil, nothing really special about it. A Boldmere fine liner, probably the worst fine liners I've ever used, but we're going to try our best with that. A Sharpie again for the shadows. For colouring, I'm going to be using the one and only Crayola Super Tips, and again the prices will be probably about here. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I started off by laying down a divider down the center of the page before giving a rough layout and then starting to build up the cheap side first. Now I found using the cheap pencil, it was a lot more scratchy when compared to what I'm used to. It wasn't as easy to build up because it would either be or really dark, really light, but overall it wasn't that bad of an experience. So moving on to inking, as I've already said before, these pens are not very good. I would not recommend getting them, but I managed to get them to work decently. They were very scratchy to start out with, and they did smudge quite a lot, so I begin to wear the smudge guard on my hand so that I wouldn't get ink all over the page. But overall, not the worst. You can definitely work with it, especially if you have a really tight budget or if you're just starting out. With the pack of colours that I had, we had one peach or skin tone colour, which in the box seemed a lot brighter and less saturated than what it turned out to be. As you can see here, it's very dark, more of a kind of salmon colour, so I had to try and work with that and give the whole thing more of a high contrast, high saturation look instead of going for the more natural effective colours that I usually go for. Also, since the Crayola markers are water-based, they will not blend very well and they don't layer as much. So as you can see, I'm using the brown for the skin tone here, and it's pretty much just a separate layer above it, so it's not mixing together at all, which you can get it to look quite nice. I have seen people do this very well. Right, a quick heads up, if you are enjoying this content so far, you can show your appreciation by leaving a like down below by pressing that thumbs up button. It shows that you like the video and it'll push it to more people. Also, if you are new and you want to join the community to help us get that 200 subs, then you can do so by pressing the subscribe button and turning the bell on so you do not miss another video. Right, let's get back to the video now. Okay, so finally we move on to the expensive side. So with the inking, I can definitely tell that it's a lot more high quality. It was not scratching whatsoever, and I didn't have to go over lines multiple times. Because the multi-liners and the Copic markers are by the same brand, they work together very well and they do not smudge if you put alcohol markers on them whatsoever, which I find really helpful if you are going for this kind of look with alcohol marker colouring as well, or if you're working with a really short time frame. So with the Copic markers, it was a really nice experience, you know, because of the brush tip. It was a lot softer and you can variate how much ink you want down. So with some highlighted areas, I put on a lot less ink by pressing a lot lighter, and because it's a brush, it will like bend a lot easier, so you've got a much better control. And the blending is really great because the alcohol in the inks, allowing them to mix together. So with the metallic parts on the armor, having the larger variation of greys helped out so much, because you could have a nice gradient and also some darker areas and lighter areas at the same time, instead of just having grey or white. Through this piece, I did realise that the black ink from the Sharpie does smudge quite a lot if put under alcohol markers, so I would pay attention to that if you are using this. Now finally, with the majority of the suit, we didn't have a blue that worked, so I had to experiment with a lot of blues and using lots of different kind of greys and shadow tones. But eventually we got somewhere that kind of works. There are a little bit more brush strokes visible because I've gone over it so much. So that concludes the cheap versus expensive art challenge. It just goes to show that you don't need super expensive art materials to create something that looks pretty good. Of course, I wouldn't recommend using some of these things like the fine liners, but I will leave recommendations in the description down below. So if you are looking into buying some of this stuff, check the links down below and find what I would recommend. But of course, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, leave a like down below, subscribe for more, and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss another video. We're so close to 200 subs, so if you want to help us out on that journey, we'd greatly appreciate you here. But yeah, without further ado, I'll see you next time.